If you guys missed anything on my channel this week, there was a bunch of content that went up on Monday, Tuesday, and today. If you guys missed what I did on Monday, we discussed Carmella possibly getting James Ellsworth back in the WWE, and he might be making his return at Money in the Bank. Off the Script Extra went live on Monday. Go and check that out if you did miss that video. Monday Night Raw. I know you guys want to forget it, but I did a review on it. And I know the WWE product right now is stale, it's boring, it's monotonous, it's formulaic. It is the opposite of consistent. But WWE did have a go-home show on Monday night. It wasn't much of one, and there was a lot of issues with it. I address all of those issues, plus give you some of the bright spots that happened on Monday Night Raw. All of that is in the review. Go and check that out on the channel right now. Also, last night for SmackDown Live, we talked about SmackDown Live being consistent when being compared to Monday Night Raw. You got the inconsistent Raw and the somewhat consistent SmackDown Live. They at least had a real go-home show that flowed very nicely. It wasn't without some cringe, but what WWE show is without cringe nowadays? But it was definitely the better of the two shows this week for Raw and SmackDown. Money in the Bank got a real go-home show on SmackDown Live with 3 first-time ever matches. And I give you my thoughts and opinions on that. Please go and check all that stuff out live on the channel right now for your entertainment. This is, of course, NXT. Thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. NXT was an excellent show tonight with a phenomenal main event between Kyle O'Reilly and the United Kingdom champion, who is set to defend that championship in a great WWE special coming up. The conclusion of the United Kingdom tournament for 2018 will find a number one contender for Pete Dunne. I have my picks, and we will definitely be discussing that in the days to come right here on the channel. But what a great main event with Pete Dunne and Kyle O'Reilly, and a great addition of NXT. They really didn't do anything to get you excited or extra excited. I think we are at our maximum point for excitement here for NXT TakeOver Chicago. But they highlighted some of the performers who are not going to be on TakeOver's show. They gave you some video packages highlighting some of the biggest matches of the night. And they gave you a great closing segment with Lars Sullivan and Aleister Black for the NXT Championship. We're going to go over all that today in this review of NXT, the go-home show for TakeOver Chicago. But, as always, with NXT TakeOver fastly approaching, Triple H usually does his conference calls before the big WWE pay-per-view weekend. And he sat down with many in the industry, with Meltzer, Satin, Raj of Wrestle Inc., Wade Keller, Jason Powell, Nick Houseman. There was a bunch of people there. Conference call with Triple H, just going over the status of everything going into NXT, what's coming up, all the latest news surrounding the event and the brand. It's a great listen. It's actually on YouTube if you guys want to go check it out. NXT TakeOver Conference Call with Triple H. There were several different pieces of information in there that I want to go over today, right before we get into NXT. And the main topic of discussion is Ricochet. Now, apparently Ricochet might have injured himself in, I think it was France. There was a house show overseas. WWE is overseas right now with NXT for the Download Festival. I don't know who he was fighting, but Ricochet did a brutal suicide dive, and it looked like the referee gave the dreaded X symbol, and everybody is wondering what Ricochet's status is for the highly anticipated match. Probably the match I'm looking forward to most besides Gargano and Ciampa the entire weekend, just not on Saturday night, the entire weekend. Ricochet versus Velveteen Dream. So I got an update on that. This is from the horse's mouth. This is from Triple H himself, and I'm pretty sure he would not be bullshitting anybody on the conference call going into TakeOver Chicago. The report reads, and I quote, "Ricochet was someone plenty of fans were waiting to see get a real shot in the WWE. The guy is multi-talented. He is fucking unbelievable. And yet another example of good things come to those who wait. Ricochet debuted at NXT, and his first TakeOver match was in New Orleans in a 6-man North American Championship ladder match. Although he might not have won the ladder match for said North American Championship, he still turned plenty of heads in that match. Fans in France were very excited to see Ricochet. Apparently, he teamed with Johnny Gargano the other night, and it looks like he took a pretty bad bump, and that might have changed the match a little bit. Ricochet missed a suicide dive and took a brutal impact on the chest. The referee threw up the dreaded X symbol, and Ricochet was assisted to the back, leaving some fans worried that he might be missing TakeOver and his match with the Velveteen Dream. Ricochet, like I said, is set to take on Dream at TakeOver Chicago on Saturday night, and fans are absolutely foaming at the mouth right now to see this match go down. If there's one match that is highly anticipated this weekend, it is that one. There is going to be a match at TakeOver that has a chance of rivaling anything that happened during New Japan Pro Wrestling's event, Dominion. It belongs to Ricochet and Velveteen Dream. I would not take anything away from Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa as well. During the TakeOver conference call, Triple H noted that Ricochet tweaked his shoulder a little bit during his tag team match in France, but it seems like the one and only Ricochet will be okay. If you've watched enough of Ricochet's matches, you've seen him take a bad bump or two before. Thankfully, this was something that won't be causing them to cancel his upcoming match against Velveteen Dream at NXT TakeOver Chicago. So there you have it. Update on Ricochet if you guys have wanted to know. Today, Triple H during the NXT TakeOver conference call with several of this industry, several of the dirt sheets, he said that Ricochet is going to be okay and that he tweaked his shoulder just a little bit. So he will be fine. They are taking him off the road for precautionary measures. They don't want him with NXT TakeOver fast approaching to be adding any more stress to the shoulders or potentially making the situation worse. So they took him off the road for a little bit to recuperate. And I guess the next time we will see Ricochet is on Saturday night in Chicago. Another thing that was discussed during this conference call was WWE and the rumor of WWE building a new performance center. Now, I don't know where this news came from, but apparently someone in the conference call or someone on the conference call spoke to Bobby Roode, and Bobby Roode said that WWE may be looking to open up new performance centers across the world. Now, this is something that we discussed on Off the Script as part of WWE's globalization, and WWE wants to get their hands into as many markets as they can. They kind of want to monopolize the industry, and they want to put performance centers where it is hottest right now as it pertains to the wrestling industry, whether that's in the United Kingdom, whether that's in Japan, Asia. It doesn't matter. WWE wants to have their hands in literally every global market when it comes to professional wrestling. So Triple H obviously addressed these rumors. The WWE Performance Center has been a centralized home for superstars and NXT recruits to hone their craft in an up-to-date facility specifically designed for pro wrestling. Coaches include some of the best minds in this business, and thousands of hours go into making sure each NXT superstar gets the proper attention they deserve. It really is a wonderful addition to the WWE machine. But Bobby Roode recently said during an interview that he heard WWE was building a new performance center. This was brought up during the conference call. The current WWE Performance Center isn't very old, and to build a new one might seem a bit premature, but the fact is it's a very good idea. And like I said, it adds to WWE and their monopoly of the industry. But it is a very crowded building, is the one in Orlando, Florida. At this point, they are very near capacity at the PC, and even though The main roster can take a handful of call-ups every year. It doesn't seem to be enough to empty out the Performance Center, as each new class includes even more athletes with amazing potential or previous accomplishments. It's an exciting time to be a pro wrestling fan while the WWE PC is in operation, but it doesn't seem like WWE is looking to add another facility just yet. Triple H revealed during TakeOver's conference call that WWE isn't looking to build a new Performance Center at this point, even though the idea doesn't seem totally absurd. Triple H said Bobby Roode's statements about a new Performance Center are absolutely glorious, but not totally accurate. However, there are always ways that WWE is looking to expand the operation because the PC is such an important aspect of WWE at this point, simply because it's honing and crafting the future of this company. So although it might be something Triple H is thinking about, he said the process has not started yet, and they're always thinking about what they might want to do in the future. But WWE's Performance Center right now is going to remain where it is. It's going to remain in its current state. But like Triple H said, and like I just said, that they're always thinking of ways to expand, and who knows what might be in the future. Another thing that I pretty much caught up on or pinpointed during this conference call with Triple H, and this is a reason why I really adore Triple H's vision and his direction for the NXT brand. There's two things that I picked up on when listening to this conference call. The first being that the talent in NXT, if they are not getting better week by week, month by month, if they aren't better than what they were last year, this year, and having that process repeat. And he mentioned Lars Sullivan, because a lot of people right now are in the same mindset that I am. It may be too soon for Lars Sullivan, but Triple H is giving Lars Sullivan an opportunity right now because they put a bunch of opportunities in front of him, and he's come out of each opportunity looking like a stud. And Lars Sullivan is a homegrown talent. He was nowhere else before WWE. He was nowhere else before the Performance Center. He was taken from his other accomplishments, which did not include wrestling, and they put him in the Performance Center, and he's been training for the last 2.5, 3 years. And a lot of people are comparing him, Triple H said, to Braun Strowman. And really, nobody can compare it to Braun Strowman. Braun Strowman is, 6'9", 6'10". He's 400 pounds. He's a fucking freak of an athlete. Lars Sullivan is a hybrid of a lot of what is good in a big man. He is a hybrid of sorts. He takes a little bit from everybody. He takes a little bit from Brock Lesnar. He takes a little bit from Braun Strowman. You fuse them together, you got Lars Sullivan. I'm not saying Lars Sullivan is on par with what those two guys are, but Lars Sullivan has definitely come a long way, and that's why they're giving him an opportunity here at TakeOver in Chicago. And Triple H mentioned that Lars is getting this opportunity because he's a homegrown talent, and he has passed everything that they've thrown in front of him with flying colors. And they think that he's ready to, take a swing at it. They mentioned if Lars is not better next year than he was this year, then Triple H deems himself a failure, because this is what they are setting out to do. They are looking to get better in every aspect moving forward. Triple H, and especially NXT, never want to move backwards. And he said, a lot of people are criticizing the fact that guys like Adam Cole and EC3 and Pete Dunne are not on TakeOver's card in Chicago on Saturday night. But Triple H said it, and I said it here. That is a testament to how deep and how great their roster is. The fact that you don't have Adam Cole on NXT TakeOver on Saturday night, what does that mean to you? It means WWE's roster for NXT right now is so good that they don't need to resort to using everybody every single time there's a takeover. That means everybody gets a portion of the pie. And NXT is always willing to find who is next, what is going on with everybody else. Give this guy a spot. Give this guy a chance. This is why I like NXT so much. He mentioned Danny Burch and Oney Lorcan. Look at this card. A lot of people are saying it kind of looks underwhelming compared to New Orleans. I wouldn't even say that at this point. With the build that we've seen on television, I am not saying that anymore. I was saying that maybe 5 weeks ago, but I'm not saying that anymore. Because when you put Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch, Oney Lorcan's first takeover, main show, Danny Burch, who just signed a new contract with WWE. These guys are a Cinderella team. You don't think they're going to fucking bring it? You don't think these guys are going to bring it? You don't think Chicago's going to be excited to see what these guys do with the Undisputed Era? That's how deep their roster is. And you look at, everybody who's coming along. When you got a Lars Sullivan who's feeding off Adam Cole, he said. I mean, if you can't get better by feeding off someone like Adam Cole, then you don't belong here. And then he mentioned Adam Cole saying, look at what Adam Cole is now compared to what he was before we got him. He is so much better now. He understands so much more now. He is so much more honed in on his craft now than he was then. So guys are constantly learning, constantly picking up what to do, what not to do. And I love that Triple H makes this a priority. He makes this one of those things that cannot go overlooked. And another thing he mentioned. The first thing he mentioned with these takeover conference calls. Everybody's looking at the Chicago card. Everybody's looking at it's going to be a great card. Everybody's looking at these matches. Gargano and Ciampa with the personal showdown and just the family ties that are there. Blood brothers. You got Aleister Black and Lars Sullivan. You got Ricochet and Velveteen Dream. Velveteen Dream, you mentioned, another homegrown talent, and these guys are looking at one of the most highly anticipated matches of the weekend. He mentioned, and he giggled, he laughed. He's like, I don't know how we're gonna top ourselves after NXT TakeOver New Orleans, and he's like, we are always looking to top ourselves from what we did the last time we had one of these. You don't know how important that is, especially coming from a boss, especially coming from the guy himself, the hierarchy in NXT. You don't know how valuable of a statement that is. Do you think that the guys on the main roster, do you think Vince McMahon and everybody else that is doing Vince McMahon's bidding on the main roster is thinking that way? Meanwhile, you got Triple H, who is in charge of NXT. He's in charge of talent relations and, recruiting, and he's in charge of 205 Live. Do you know how valuable it is that your boss starts at the top? It starts at the top. When you have a boss that is uttering the words, we need to do better than what we did in New Orleans, you don't know how much of a fucking spark that will be that lights that fire underneath this talent. The fact that Triple H has a mindset of wanting to be better than New Orleans when that was the best takeover that they have ever done, that gives me hope, not only for Saturday night, but for when this guy eventually takes over. Because that's what I want in a boss. I want someone who's constantly going to get better. If you're going backwards, there's no reason for you to be here. If I got worse every single fucking time I did this thing called YouTube, I would not be where I am today. I would not be at All In. I would not be getting invited to doing this and this and this. I would not be where I am in House of Glory. If you are in this, you have to constantly get better every single time. You need to have a take over the world mentality. And I love that about Triple H. Someone actually brought up, I think it was Nick Houseman. I think it was him from WrestleZone. They mentioned about social media. Triple H says that everybody who's a recruit at NXT, even the people that are there, they get speech lessons, they get vocal lessons, they get language lessons. He mentioned Triple H there that John Cena goes into the Performance Center because he wanted to learn Mandarin. He says if you're from the outside and you don't speak English too well, they give you English lessons there. They go over speech with you there. Triple H mentioned social media. He mentioned NXT doesn't do any mass promoting. You don't see WWE promoting NXT all over the place. It's mainly built through word of mouth, and it's built through social media. It's like you don't know how important social media is of a tool if you use it correctly. He's like, and this rings true. You know, this is why, again, I love Triple H. People get social media lessons. If you're a recruit or an NXT talent, you get social media lessons about how to conduct yourself on social media. You know, it's up to you whether you want to be positive. It's up to you whether you want to be negative. And he said that whatever you do on social media is going to create a characterization and a visual of yourself to everybody else. If you want to spread your word, negative or positive, you know, if you use social media the right way, you are going to reach a mass number of people. And that's how NXT is built. NXT is built through word of mouth and through social media. You don't see WWE promoting NXT all over the place. If they did, they'd be shoving it down your throat. And they have not done that. That conference call was very, very good from Triple H. If you guys have not listened in on one of these, it is an enjoyable listen. And Triple H, how humble he is and how thankful he is at the end of the conference call, says that he loves doing these because, A, he gets the feel of excitement from everybody, and with the questions that come into him, it kind of makes him take a step back and think, how could we do this better? And what could we do differently that we weren't doing before? And if he gets an idea from one of these guys, and it's tossed at him during this conference call, he thinks about it, and they take it into heavy consideration. And I like the fact that Triple H is amongst the public and amongst the people doing these conference calls. You think Vince McMahon's going to do a conference call before WrestleMania? It's not going to be about the talent. It's not going to be about the show. It's not going to be about what's coming up. It's going to be about subscribers on the network and revenue and quarterly updates and DVD sales and all this other shit. Because that's what they're about on the main roster. NXT doesn't have that to worry about, yes. But I hope Triple H takes everything that he's doing here in NXT, and when he is the man, one day, he applies what he's doing now on the main roster. Because it's going to be very beneficial if he does. So that conference call was really, really fun to listen to, and you just get an inside look at where he is, mindset-wise, before we get to TakeOver. And it's also, you know, a way to talk about some of the highly talked about topics. Someone mentioned about Shawn Michaels coming back. Is there any fuel to that fire? You know, he's like Shawn Michaels, you know, he's one of those guys where you're not going to get a real answer out of him. If you want to ask him, I'll bring him in on a conference call, but he might not even give you an answer. And then if you go hunt him down, he may super kick you. You know, so it was pretty cool. But the conference call did give you some vital pieces of information about what's going on with TakeOver on Saturday night and where WWE is headed after TakeOver. And he discussed the UK Championship Tournament and how everybody's excited and how it's going to be a big event. It's going to be like a mini TakeOver almost that follows TakeOver on Saturday night. Speaking of TakeOver, tonight was the NXT Go Home show for TakeOver. It was a really well thought out show. They featured talent that's not going to be on the show. In between the matches that we've seen tonight, we've seen hype packages and video packages from some of the matches that we're going to see on Saturday night. And it concluded with Aleister Black and Lars Sullivan. And the main event tonight was, like I said, Pete Dunne versus Kyle O'Reilly for the United Kingdom Championship. And it really got to push them into the spotlight for their championship title defense against Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch. So it was pretty good that they pushed the Undisputed Era into the spotlight there and kind of gave you a little teaser about what's to come on Saturday night with those two teams. But the show started off with War Raiders versus two bums, two jobbers, two scrubs, Ricky Martinez and Justin Storm. This match didn't last all but 2 minutes. These guys, they didn't go in on the bums that they fought last week like they did this week. But the War Raiders still dominating team. They destroyed these two scrubs. They did their finishing move, and it was it. 1, 2, 3. After the match, War Raiders call themselves the Mighty, and they also say, we'll show them the Mighty. So they put the Mighty on notice. They put TM61 on notice. Now, I know Shane Thorne mentioned last week that they're calling themselves the Mighty. It might be a slight name change, just to kind of accompany their heel persona now. But like I mentioned last week, the heel persona for TM61, I hope, is slowly elevated. The reason why they're I guess changing TM61 into a heel team is because there's too many babyface teams on the main on NXT right now. You know, you got Street Profits, you got War Raiders, you got Heavy Machinery. You know, those are all babyface teams. TM61 was a babyface team. You got Lorcan and Birch, babyface team. You know, you only got one heel team right now, and that is the Undisputed Era. So you kind of needed to offset that a little bit, and the Mighty are getting somewhat of a gimmick tweak. Now, I don't know what they're going to be called. They are calling themselves the Mighty. Shane Thorne did mention that the Mighty, they're going to make everybody kneel before them. The Mighty don't kneel. So we'll see what happens with that. But that match is booked for TakeOver, but it's on their pre-show. It's going to be taped at TakeOver in front of Chicago's crowd for NXT TV next week. So we're getting the War Raiders versus TM61, the Mighty, on next week's show, which is pretty cool. But War Raiders, I believe, there's no doubt in my mind that these guys are being set up for Tag Team Championship Gold in NXT. It looks like the way that they're going to run through the Mighty. And it looks like these two guys, Hanson and Rowe, are going to be set up as the next challengers for Undisputed Era. And that is going to be a damn good fucking match, man. That's going to be very interesting to see going into TakeOver Brooklyn for SummerSlam weekend. We got a beautiful video package of Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano with some great fucking music to go over the video package, man. Just great shit. Really is great shit. Obviously, they will meet in Chicago in a street fight. And Johnny Gargano says that it's not going to be a wrestling match. It's going to be a fight. So I can't wait to see what they do differently compared to what they did in New Orleans. EC3 versus Cassius Ohno. This was a big test for EC3, his first big test in NXT. This was actually a relatively short match. You know, Cassius Ohno did what he had to do. He did his Cyclone Kick. He nailed him with some elbows. He nailed him with some sentons. EC3 looked like he was reeling for the first time in his young NXT career. But EC3 gets the victory here, man. Yeah, I think Ohno went to the outside. He followed EC3 to the outside. He hit a senton on the outside. So EC3 yanks Ohno's neck across the rope as they're trying to get back into the ring. And then he hits his finishing move, the 1%er, on Ohno, which is a very difficult task to do because Cassius Ohno is no small man. He hits the 1%er out of nowhere, and he gets the pinfall. Relatively easy. So Cassius Ohno got some stiff offense in on EC3, but EC3 got the victory here in his first big singles victory on NXT. And like I said, he's not going to be on TakeOver's card after being featured in New Orleans with the North American Championship. But I don't see that as a bad thing. You got to give everybody a piece of the pizza pie. EC3 not being on the card is a good thing because it shows how deep NXT's roster really is. Bianca Belair versus Aaliyah. I love Bianca Belair. I think Aaliyah is smoking gorgeous. But I think Aaliyah, right now is totally in the wrong place at the wrong time. We've seen Aaliyah from Breaking Ground, if you guys remember, how she was just trying to talk William Regal's ear off about developing a character and wanting to be on the live shows and wanting to be on NXT TV and at TakeOver. She needs to work hard to get there, but there was really no spot for her at that moment during the filming of that show. So Aaliyah comes up with a new gimmick. She's going through different ideas, and I thought Aaliyah was going to be coming along, and I think she was going to be one of those females that was going to be featured on NXT TV. Right now, she's in the wrong place at the wrong time, and she's merely used as an enhancement talent, and I know she can wrestle. I know she's much better than what she's being portrayed as on television. This was a glorified squash match. This was nothing but a Bianca Belair showcase. And there's a reason why. Because Bianca Belair is going to be the next in line, or at least soon. I think it's going to be Kairi Sane and then Bianca Belair. Because Bianca Belair is a heel, and I don't want to see a heel go up against Shayna Baszler, because Shayna Baszler is the alpha, the female heel. Well, I guess you could say she's the alpha heel in the women's division. So, I'm not interested in that match whatsoever. I'd rather Kairi Sane take the title off of Shayna Baszler, and then we get Kairi Sane versus Bianca Belair in a treat for everybody, and a way to kind of build off what they did and the story that they told in the Mae Young Classic last year. Because this is a way different Bianca Belair than what we seen in that match with Kairi Sane last year. This is a different Kairi Sane. Bianca Belair came out wearing all black with blue lips on her tights, and she was wearing glittery blue lipstick. It looked fucking ridiculous. Honey, I am a huge advocate of yours. The lipstick's gotta go. It does nothing for your appearance. It looks ridiculous. I can't take you seriously. You look like, you look like you ate a fucking Smurf. Or it looks like you're auditioning for the fucking Blue Man Group. Cut the lipstick out. If you're gonna use lipstick, use red, or don't use any at all. I don't even know why she's gonna use any at all. It doesn't really fit the mold of what she is. I don't know what the deal with the lipstick is. That's just me, man. It's the first thing I notice. I'm like, what the fuck is with the lipstick over here? But anyway, Bianca Belair is a fucking freak of nature, man. This was a glorified squash match. Aaliyah was talking shit. Bianca Belair fucking leveled her with an elbow. And Aaliyah was just like, man, I got to get the fuck out of this ring. What the fuck am I doing here? She did a back handspring into the corner. She hits a big spear, a nice vertical suplex. Aaliyah then tried to get a standing guillotine. Belair ends up just suplexing her. Frog splash, kip up, beautiful kip up she did. She starts yelling, I am the EST. Then she does that signature deadlift of Aaliyah. She did it to Candice LeRae, if you guys remember. She does it to Aaliyah here, and then dumps her and just throws her headfirst into the top turnbuckle. Then she does a torture rack, and she has a new finishing move. It's no longer the alley-oop. Thank fucking Christ somebody in NXT listened. She does this torture rack position, and then she does a face buster. So she goes from the torture rack position to a face buster, and it's much better transition, and it just flows so much nicely, and it looks so much better compared to the alley-oop. That alley-oop was fucking ridiculous. She gets them over the head, and she just tosses them back, and they land where they land, and they land how they land. It was awful. It was really bad. But I'm glad she got a new finishing move. I am super excited to see where she goes. She is the best athlete, I think, out of every female on Raw and SmackDown, man. I have the most promise. I have the most excitement right now for Bianca Belair. And I've been stating that since last year's Mae Young Classic. I don't think I'm going to say that about anybody else on this roster unless Toni Storm comes into NXT. One can only hope. I wish Toni Storm would knock on my back door. She'd be in immediately. Come on, honey. Anyway, Bianca Belair wins with her new finishing move. I don't think it has a name yet, but she looked very, very impressive. We've seen a vignette for Shayna Baszler and Nikki Cross getting you ready and getting you hyped for their match at TakeOver Chicago. Backstage, Kathy Kelly talks with Dakota Kai about her title match last week with Baszler and how close she came to winning the title. Kai says that she knows it was close, and if she's going to change a thing or two, she will definitely become the NXT Women's Champion. Belair then jumps in, and I love Bianca, coming in here and says, this is who you're interviewing, This is who you're interviewing here. Did you just see what I did in the ring? And this is who you're interviewing? Kai interjects and says, Belair says, you're not going to do anything but cry and fail, so fall back. Kai doesn't stand down and says, let's see how Belair does in the ring next week. Belair is fine with that open challenge. So it looks like we're getting a match between these two. This will probably be Bianca Belair's first real test outside of what we've seen with Kairi Sane last year. This is going to be a great match, and this match is actually taking place in Chicago on the pre-show, and we're going to see it for next week's NXT. So we got two great matches next week for NXT. We got Bianca Belair versus Dakota Kai, and we got the mighty TM61 versus the War Raiders. So it should be an entertaining week next week with some NXT TakeOver matches filmed for NXT TV next week. Pete Dunne versus Kyle O'Reilly for the United Kingdom Championship, man. This was one of the best main events for NXT all year. I'm looking at Kyle O'Reilly, and I'm looking at him, and I'm thinking to myself, if he broke away from Undisputed Era sometime in the future, he would be absolutely fucking fantastic on his own. It would make me wonder what they do with Bobby Fish. But Kyle O'Reilly is a world-class athlete. He's got a background in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Pete Dunne is Pete Dunne. We know he's a technical guy. And you put two of those things together with two of these guys, and you got a ground-based submission free-for-all for the first 10 minutes of this match, man. They wore each other out. On top of that, O'Reilly is stiff as a motherfucker. Pete Dunne is as stiff as a motherfucker. And these guys were going at it, man. There's nothing that I could really say that's going to do justice to this match. This was a great technical match. These guys brought it when they wanted to fight. They brought it. And I love the fact that they're playing up the storyline consistency with Pete Dunne's injured thigh, his leg, and that became a factor in this match. We had Pete Dunne work on O'Reilly's arm, and that was a factor in this match. At one point, O'Reilly couldn't really use his arm or utilize his arm too much. So this was a great story, and it was definitely physical to get you guys ready for whatever the Undisputed Era and Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch are going to do at TakeOver Chicago. Towards the end of this match, there was an X-Plex on the ring apron, and that looked brutal in itself. So there was back and forth. O'Reilly continues to swing away at Pete Dunne. O'Reilly pulls out, at the end of the match, he pulls out Pete Dunne's mouthpiece. And it looked like he was going to finish him off. He got a little bit too cocky. He pulled out Pete Dunne's mouthpiece. He throws it away. Dunne then, right there, in the blink of an eye, when Kyle O'Reilly turned his head, he took O'Reilly's hand, snapped his fingers back, and he hits the bitter end out of nowhere, and he pins Kyle O'Reilly clean. There was no interference. There was no Undisputed Era at ringside. It was a clean finish. So Pete Dunne gets a clean victory over Kyle O'Reilly here. After the match, Strong hits the ring with Cole, and they attack Pete Dunne. Lorcan and Burch back up Pete Dunne. All four guys are swinging at each other. Pete Dunne is fucking blasting Adam Cole on the outside with some stiff shots. Lorcan and Burch end up sending the two out to the floor. Crowd is going crazy, and this is really going to be a great match at TakeOver Chicago, man. It may be the sleeper match of the night. I would not sleep on that tag team title match. You're probably asking yourself, Pete Dunne not on the card. You got Lorcan and Burch against the Undisputed Era. Come on, man. Don't sleep on it. It's going to be a great match, and I fully expect all four guys to bring it in Chicago. We've seen Aleister Black in the ring with the NXT Championship. It's nice to see the NXT Championship just standing alone in the spotlight at the end of the show. So I've been complaining about it. It's nice to see it. Aleister Black heads to the ring. He's talking about Lars Sullivan. He says that when it's all said and done, he will fade to black. He's like, he got a little worried because Lars Sullivan took away, for the time being, he took away the one thing that has been a constant to him, and that was the fade to black. But he will fade to black in Chicago. Keeping his words short, Sullivan comes out, his theme music hits, and he charges the ring. There's a big brawl between these two guys. They trade shots. Sullivan lands a huge lethal lariat, and he delivers three freak accidents. And he starts screaming, "I'm not fading to black." He carries Aleister Black on his shoulder with the NXT title in hand. He brings him over to Morrow's announce table. He lays him out on the announce table. And we got Lars Sullivan standing up on the announce table with the NXT Championship screaming, "You will fade to black. You will fade to black." And then Morrow is so fucking great on commentary, man. He was like, Aleister Black is laying on the announce table as if he's being placed on an altar. Will Lars Sullivan sacrifice Aleister Black and capture the NXT Championship at TakeOver Chicago? Will this be the vision that we see in Chicago? At TakeOver. It was great, man. That was the first real, I feel, just kind of, I guess, excitement for this match. Because Morrow sold most of it. I mean, Aleister Black has been taking a beating from Lars Sullivan for the last couple of times these two have kind of interacted with each other. Now, that doesn't mean jack shit in NXT. NXT is a promotion where you think something's going to happen and the opposite happens. So if WWE wants to give the championship to Lars Sullivan, they'll give the championship to Lars Sullivan. I just don't see it happening because I don't think he's ready. I don't think the fans are really invested in Lars Sullivan to a point yet to be at that stage. And Aleister Black really hasn't had a championship title reign yet. So I don't think Aleister Black is going to lose that championship. I fully expect the fade to black on Lars Sullivan. But I do expect Lars Sullivan to bring the fight, and I expect Aleister Black to make him look like a fucking beast in Chicago. Man, this was a great show. I urge you guys to go watch that Kyle O'Reilly Pete Dunne match. That was a fucking great match. Definitely one of the best main events of NXT TV this year. But I'm getting out of here, guys. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed the NXT review. I will be back with something tomorrow. I just don't know what yet. And then Friday, we're going to talk about TakeOver Chicago. I'm going to give you my brief rundown of the card and my preview and predictions, plus other news and rumors throughout the week. So please make sure you guys tune in on Friday for episode 226 of Off the Script. Thank you guys so much. Again, if you missed any of my videos this week, man, we got Raw and SmackDown, as well as a Off the Script extra with Carmella discussing James Ellsworth possibly coming back at Money in the Bank. So make sure you guys go and check that out. SmackDown Live review. We got Monday Night Raw, and we have the Off the Script extra as well. So please make sure you guys go and check all that stuff out on the channel right now. Definitely worth your time to go check that stuff out. And I'm getting out of here. Thank you all so very much. Like I said, hit that thumbs up, and I will see you guys tomorrow with something, and then definitely on Friday for Off the Script episode 226. Have a great Wednesday night. I'll see you guys Thursday, and have a good night, man. I'll talk to you guys later.